All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast. My name is Fred Diamond. Of course, I'm the author of Love, Hope, Lyme, what family members, partners, and friends who love a chronic Lyme survivor need to know. And we have Lauren Lovejoy today with Lyme Warriors. I'm very excited. We'll get to Lauren in a second. I want to remind people that I'm not a doctor. So this is not a replacement for medical care. If you're struggling with Lyme and co-infections, please go seek proper medical treatment. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Go up, give us a 5-star review, or give us a thumbs up, I guess I should say, on YouTube. Leave a question, give a comment. As Lauren, we've had some shows where we've gotten as many as like 30 comments, and even a couple of months or even a year after the show being published, people discover them and give comments. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that. If you found this on any of the Facebook posts or Instagram, please give us a thumbs up as well. I want to remind people, Lauren, that my book, Love, Hope, Lyme, it's on Amazon, but the PDF has always been free from day one. And if people would like a copy, if they're a chronic Lyme survivor, they can reach out to me via LinkedIn, via Facebook, Instagram, whatever it might be. And we'd be happy to get that to you, Lauren. I've given out close to 5,000 copies of Love, Hope, Lyme, the PDF. It's been free from day one and always will be. All right. Today's a very special show. We're doing today's show in the fall of 2025, and I'm interviewing Lauren Lovejoy with Lyme Warriors. And as we go through the interview, we'll talk about this. A lot of people know that when I was writing my book, Love, Hope, Lyme, I didn't really know much about the Lyme world. I had someone in my life who had Lyme, and I wanted to discover more about what they were going through. And I came across the term Lyme Warrior, and I Googled it, and I hadn't heard it before. And I was shocked, Lauren, to find 27,000, I believe at the time, Lyme survivors who consider themselves to be Lyme Warrior. And I've gotten to know people in your organization. I've gone to some of your 5Ks. We'll talk about that as we go through, but it's really a deep honor to have Lauren Lovejoy, the founder of Lyme Warrior. So Lauren, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here. So my name is Lauren Lovejoy. I started Lyme Warrior almost a decade ago at this point and have just been learning and trying to do my best to help the Lyme community.
So it's great. So I guess I originally called you Lyme Warriors, but I guess the organization is Lyme Warrior.
Yes. I was about to say we'll take either, but
So my apologies for that. And if I say Lyme Warriors throughout, this show is also dedicated to the people who consider themselves to be Lyme Warrior. So we'll get to why you created Lyme Warrior in a second. So, I've had a lot of advocates on the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast for whatever reason. People have decided to become advocates. Either they had Lyme themselves and have gotten to a point where they wanted to give back, or they had a child or children with Lyme disease, or themselves or a spouse, whatever it might be. So feel free to share whatever it is you want to share about your Lyme journey as deeply as you'd like to go. When did you start having Lyme symptoms? Again, we're doing today's interview in early fall of 2025. You could discuss whatever you want. When were you diagnosed? Any of the treatment protocols that you've gone through? It's up to you to tell us what you want to tell us.
Yeah, so I got sick about 12 years ago at this point. I went from being a perfectly normal, healthy, functioning individual to within 3 months, I had lost my job and was struggling to stay in college and function. I saw every single doctor there was under the sun. I think I saw 60 in 2 years. I lost count after that. And I was so frustrated that all of a sudden I became a non-functional human in the middle of my 20s for no reason that was apparent. I got my diagnosis because I was screaming at a clinic who wouldn't accept me. It was a private clinic and they did all kinds of alternative care. And I said, I want to come to your clinic. They said, you're not a good candidate. And so I unloaded on the poor receptionist about what I was going through and how dare they not take me. And he quietly said to me, I think you have Lyme disease. I think you should check out GemSec Clinic up in Northern Virginia. And that turned out to be the person who gave me my official diagnosis and started me on the path to multi-years of learning and trying to recover. And I will say I love Dr. Demsek very deeply. Antibiotics were not a solution to me. And I was with him for 2 years. Eventually, after I discovered that wasn't working, I switched to an herbalist who helped me not only with Lyme disease, but Bartonella and multiple other conditions. And that's where my recovery really started being a significant story. And a lot of people will find in my work that there is a lot of discussion around alternative treatment methods because antibiotics just seem to be a solution for some, but not for many. So that's something I always like to share in my story, that alternative treatments, while not standard, hold a lot of weight in this and can do a lot for people.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken, we've done shows on herbals, we've done shows on other types of alternative treatments, and just yeah, I want to also give a shout out to Dr. Jemzek. I met him early in my research, and for people who've read Love, Hope, Lyme, his quote is at the top of the cover, and he is a great man who's done a lot of great things for a lot of people. So it's 12 years. When in the 12-year journey? And again, if you don't want to discuss any of this, just let me know. When in your 12-year journey did the moment come where it was confirmed it was Lyme? Was this a year in, 2 years in, 3 years?
Probably about 2.5 years when I ended up in Dr. Jemsek's clinic, and he ran my first IGeneX panel, which was inconclusive, but I received a clinical diagnosis from him. So that would be where I would say I became a Lyme warrior that day.
Now, I hate to ask this question, but you said you saw 60 doctors, and
Yes.
we hear this all the time. Did a doctor ever say to you it's in your head, or did anyone ever say to you it's mental and you don't have Lyme, blah blah blah?
I think it would be easier to ask which of them didn't say that to me.
Mhm.
I think I was 26 at the time of most of it. I was a female. I went to the gym regularly. I went to graduate school by night and I worked a full time job during the day. And I also picked up part time work. And they went, "Oh, you're very stressed and overworked and anxious. This isn't possibly a real condition," was the main thing somebody said to me. And I went, "I could do all of that 2 weeks ago. I no longer can do any of that. And you think it's an emotional problem." So yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So you've been on the journey and you created Lyme Warrior. So tell us, what was the moment? What was the impetus? And just to start off, what does it mean to be a Lyme Warrior? Why did you create that name? And, like I mentioned, when I started doing my research, I mean, I saw a stat, maybe I'm pretty sure I saw this, where it said there's 27,000 Lyme survivors who consider themselves to be Lyme Warriors. If you can either confirm or correct that, I would appreciate that also.
I don't know. I mean, a Lyme warrior, I think, is very subjective. Are you somebody who embodies it? But, my last understanding is there's 500,000 people diagnosed a year, whether they want to call themselves Lyme warriors or not. I think that would be very subjective. But I do consider the word Lyme warrior as somebody who just doesn't give up. And those are all kinds of different expressions. I don't mean you need to be out running a 5K. I mean, did you get up and say, "I'm going to try one thing to continue living or continue to experience life"? Because giving up is very much an option that a lot of people don't like to discuss because we say we can't consider that. But that is very much like a harsh reality. So to me, being a warrior is saying, I didn't give up today. I may only have 1% of my normal bandwidth to give, but if I gave that 1%, to me, that's being a warrior.
Yeah, I guess I should have asked you in the beginning. So how are you doing now? Again, you said 12 years into your Lyme journey. And again, went to doing today's interview in October 2025. How are you today?
It's a complicated answer because a lot of people who sustain chronic illness for decades, we have all kinds of secondary conditions that come up. So I would say I consider myself in remission from Lyme disease and Bartonella. I am not showing any symptoms of the bacteria continuing to exist in my body, but I have developed mold sensitivities and food sensitivities and other secondary conditions. So I still have a lot of health issues that affect my life, but I am in technical remission. So it's just, Lyme disease is a complicated condition that leaves other complicated conditions behind it.
Absolutely. So tell us more about Lyme Warrior. So what type of services do you offer? What do the Lyme Warriors say they want or need from you?
Yeah, well, the need is overwhelming, right? So with Lyme Warrior right now, the first tier of things we're trying to accomplish is just awareness. I think so many people don't realize, one, that there's a community out there, and two, the abundance of resources. Because if you go to a traditional doctor, Here's 30 days of doxycycline. Okay, you're not better. Good luck. Like, so few people realize the abundance of other things that are out there. So we're trying to spread awareness with 5K events, different ways to try to join a community together and create that awareness of Lyme disease. So we think that's a good first start. The second thing we do is we do kids smile boxes every holiday. We do where parents submit their children who have Lyme disease. Children are particularly more isolated because they can't go to school. They can't always express themselves. They tend to have a very hard time. So we find that the holidays is a perfect time to send curated boxes to kids with Lyme disease that help show up and say, we know you're experiencing something that a lot of other people don't get. Here's a reminder that we're here. We usually do about 50 of those a year. This year, we're going to try to do 100. So excited to start working on those soon. And the last thing we do is we used to do a lot of patient care grants, which would be financial support for people who can't afford treatment. Fundraising conditions have been very tough in the last 5 years. So that program definitely ebbs and flows, but it's probably the closest to my heart in that we know that insurance doesn't cover a lot. We know that treatment is wildly expensive. So being able to financially empower people is the one that gets me excited the most. And I think what people need.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody who's listening understands, the financial challenges related to Lyme. And I've actually been at one of your 5Ks. I was at the one in Wilmington, North Carolina, and it was a beautiful day. And it's I guess just tell a little more about that. So you have them like around the country. I know you've had some in Illinois and Texas and other places. And obviously 5K, it's like a run walk, I guess. And just kind of explain what the whole purpose is and what it looks like for people who may not know.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things with Lyme Warrior is I didn't want it to be a story about myself, right? Lyme Warrior is everybody. We are the collective. So I wanted anybody who wanted to create events to be there with support. So for the 5Ks, anybody can host one with Lyme Warrior support. They just call us up, work with our amazing event coordinator, Sharon, and we help put these on in different locations. And so it's a place kind of like a pop-up community that you get to connect with others and be there. And, they can be microscopic and tiny to we've had, big multi-thousand people ones. And I think what the most exciting part about it is just finding a community of people who you don't have to explain your condition to. When you show up and say, I can't run, there are no further questions. We get why you can't run. We get that like you're here to like hang out and be around people who are supported. And I think that's the big thing with the 5Ks is it's not let's go run. It's where are the other people? Where's the support systems and where are the resources in our local community to improve our lives?
Yeah, that's great. And shout out, you just mentioned Sharon. Shout out to Sharon, who I've met in person a couple of times. Actually, I'm going to meet her next week at the iLads conference. I know she's going to be going there, and actually visited her in her then hometown and got to meet. And you're absolutely right about, people needing to come together. This is such an isolating disease. Obviously, people listening know that. You just said before, how many doctors didn't tell you that it was in your head. And that's why I wrote my book, Love, Hope, Lyme, is because I kept hearing that time and time again. People didn't believe that they had this disease. It's very hard to test, as you alluded to. And there's so many just ridiculous things about the disease. I'm so excited how Lyme Warrior brings together the community. So there are people like you who have Lyme and then made the choice to become an advocate, made the choice to be out there. And a lot of people like you, going through, pain, in times when the disease is, made it very difficult to advocate and to be forward and et cetera. But I just want to acknowledge you for that, for how you've gotten, and I know it's been a struggle, but how you've gotten above that to create something of such value. Just kind of curious. So you've been doing this for a while. What are some of your observations that you've learned about just Lyme in general and the Lyme community and what Lyme is in the world since you've been running Lyme Warrior?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is a interesting challenge that I feel like is very, very specific to the Lyme community is so something I went through very personally was you're fine and then your life turns upside down and then no one believes you. Like medical professionals, all these people, these hospitals that are there to help you in time of crisis turn their back on you. And then friends and family also don't understand you because this is not a CDC confirmed disease. This can't possibly be real. It sounds wild. And you start becoming extremely bitter, I feel like is the understatement, and angry. And you have all these things going wrong. You feel terrible. we become very angry, angry people, and rightly so. Like, no judgment. I have been that, like, very angry, screaming out on a phone to strangers. Like, you get so mad at what's happening to you and how others are treating you. And then I also found that, when I turn around and say, okay, we're going to advocate and we're going to make a difference, it's so hard to be that because you've been stuffed in this box and ignored and not taken care of for so long. Lyme warriors are kind of the only advocates in the space, but we're also not great advocates for ourselves because of what we've experienced and all the hardship we've gone through. So that's been a really tough place in advocacy, and why caregivers are actually like the best person to advocate for us. Because when my spouse tells my story, I sound like the hero and I sound like the greatest thing ever. Sometimes when I tell my story, some of my not finer points don't come out. They don't sound so much as a hero story. It makes me sound a little bit crazy, but it's from one person's storytelling perspective to another's. And that's why I think the caregivers getting out and showing the hardship that we're experiencing and not coming from a victim place is very important. So I would say, as a Lyme community, when we are trying to advocate for change and advancement, what tone are we coming from? Is it valid or not valid? That's been a very interesting component that has been very challenging in self-growth and self-awareness.
No, that's a great answer. And that's actually a very powerful answer that I hadn't really considered. I'm just kind of curious. So what is your advice for family members, partners, and friends of Lyme survivors? So I like the way you just delineated that, Lauren. Again, we're talking with Lauren Lovejoy with Lyme Warrior. You talked about how the fact when you sometimes communicate, you may not get the people listening, the active or the right listening that you want for whatever the reasons might be. But, when someone does advocate for you, a family, partner, friend, whoever it might be, they do seem to get listened. What's your advice for them?
Yeah, just for caregivers, family members, it's just to believe the person in front of you. Um, I think the caregiver journey is so undervalued because you have this volatile, unhappy, miserable partner who you're trying to help, but they don't want it all the time and they're irrational. Your entire life has come to a standstill because of what's going on with them, but all they can see is their world and the struggle. So there's a lot of emotional dynamics that go on, but just to believe the person, what they're saying is in front of you, but also kind of take it with a grain of salt that you're there to help translate their hurt and their pain into the world in a constructive way.
Wow, that's very well said. I'm just kind of curious. So, again, we're doing today's interview in October 2025. There's been some high profile things that have happened with Lyme. 60 Minutes just did a story on Lyme disease and how some communities are trying to combat, tick-borne disease. A couple of months ago, Justin Timberlake, one of the top pop stars in the world, announced that he had Lyme disease, which caused him some problems in his profession. What do you hope happens in the coming year in the Lyme world? Again, you've been advocating for over a dozen years. You lead an entity with thousands, if not tens of thousands, of participants who are looking towards you for guidance, advice, thoughts. You have a beautiful website with a lot of information as well. What do you think are some of the major challenges that need to be addressed and solved?
Yeah, so the biggest problem, of course, is that our testing is 30% accurate, right? So we run 100,000 people through the test, and clearly only 30% of those are going to get a proper diagnosis, which I think is the worst part of all of it. But I'm very excited that that is changing. I do believe that there will be kind of standardized approved testing changes in the next 3 to 5 years at minimum. So I am so optimistic for that, because if we can start proving what a widespread issue this is, and that this is not all these other conditions that they say it is, it's not anxiety, it's not depression, it's not MS, it's not fibromyalgia, it's not the list, right? It's Lyme disease. And then once we see those numbers balloon, we already say that this is an epidemic in our country, and those numbers become huge, the funding is just going to increase dramatically. All the research behind it increases dramatically. So I think we're really at this point where there's about to be a major shift that starts this cascade of change, which is I'm super excited for.
Yeah, that'll be great. And, more people are becoming aware of it. It's still, as we like to say, the quiet epidemic, the name of the documentary, which
Yep.
has been out there, and it's still a mysterious disease in a lot of ways. Um, you know, uh, if anybody knows someone with Lyme disease, they may just know that maybe there's fatigue, they can't work, maybe there's brain fog or, or persistent symptoms, whatever it might be. And it's such a complicated disease. What else do you want to tell us about Lyme Warrior that we might not have covered?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Lyme Warrior is that if the standard system fails you, there are more alternatives. If you tried one thing and it didn't work, there are more things that work. And something that I really take pride in is we talk about the secondary conditions that are limiting people. The biggest thing I see holding people back to recovery is mold and parasites, that they don't
Mm.
realize that while before Lyme disease, they could live in small amounts of molds or with some parasites. And those, when treatment hits, are huge limiting factors. So I see them saying, I'm treating, but you're not addressing underlying conditions. So those are things that I really try to highlight and talk to individuals about, that there are so many other conditions that will prevent you from getting better. It's not your treatment failing you, it's complications. So I think that's super important.
So for the Lyme community out there, what do you want them to do as it relates to Lyme Warrior? Do people sign up? Do they donate? What would you like the community to know how they can help Lyme Warrior continue to do the amazing work that it does?
Yeah, so of course, just stay in our newsletter loop is the best way to know all the things coming up. But I would say my biggest thing is if you feel called to raise awareness or do something, that's what we're here for. So if you say, well, maybe I could throw a 5K, I'm interested, like we would love to connect you with Sharon, see if we can get something going in your area. If you have a whole different idea, we've thrown independent paint nights, we've thrown whatever. The community is here to support what you want to say in your community and give you the support you need. We're a very low support community. We are here to try to change that.
And is there anything else you're looking to bring? Is there anything in the future that you want to announce here, or you will let us know, or just continuation of what you've been doing, or just give us some thoughts on that?
Yeah, just I think quiet continuation of supporting the community, especially through the changes that are coming ahead. We want to lay out that if you hit stumbling blocks, we have more resources. We want to help people navigate when the testing is going to change and the upcoming treatments. There's a lot of treatments that are coming down the road. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative, and we just want to stay here as a support system. We don't need to think about Lyme disease every single day, but how can we stay there and be in your back pocket that when you need support, we're here.
Once again, Lauren, I want to just acknowledge you again for creating something uh, that's really special. I don't know
Thank
how
you.
well you accept that type of announcement to you, but like I said, about 4 years ago, I started my research to understand more about Lyme, and Lyme Warrior appeared relatively quickly, and I got to meet Lyme Warriors. I got to meet people in your organization who've created the 5Ks and who published some of your stuff and who do advocate frequently on social media about what Lyme Warrior has going on. And if you haven't been told lately, you've touched tens of thousands of lives. And like you said in some of your comments before, it's a very challenging disease. I mean, everyone listening knows that you break an ankle, you go into a cast for 6 weeks, and then you do some rehab. Lyme disease, like you alluded to, there's the co-infections, and then there's other symptoms that arise that people treat, but at the core, it's Lyme disease. And like you said before, once you get past the 30 days of doxy, if you're lucky to have seen a rash like within the weekend or whatever it might have been, as we know, a lot of people have never seen anything. And then they start having symptoms months, if not years after everything's happened. And then things get very, very complicated. So I encourage people to go to your website. There's a lot of great information. I know my book is one of the recommended books. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for being on the show. Like I said, I've been wanting to interview you for a while because of what you've created and how you're helping, like I mentioned, tens of thousands of Lyme survivors and their family members really make it through on such a challenging disease. So I hope that you can intake that. Any final thoughts? Anything we didn't cover that you want to make sure we get out there?
No, I very much appreciate it. It's always been a tiny team of just a handful of Lyme warriors. And so it's been very tough to like pace ourselves. We can't work a 40, 60-hour week at this. It was volunteer for like the first 5 years anyway. So we are a small team working hard to make change. So it's just always appreciated to hear that it is doing what it is, because as you know, the need is overwhelming, but the more we can all just step up, do what we're capable of, I think that's what changes it, just slow community change over time.
Absolutely. All right. Once again, I want to thank Lauren Lovejoy with Lyme Warrior and just acknowledge all the people who support you and all the Lyme Warriors out there My name is Fred Diamond, and this is the Love, Hope, Lyme podcast.